Today was going to be the day. He'd already written the note and parked the Chevrolet at the end of that dead-end road. He was just about to end everything, taking one last long breath, when he heard his cell phone ring. I thought of the one man in particular who never had the opportunity at that critical moment to have their cell phone ring. But the man in this song did have a cell phone, and it rang, and he answered it. And the friend on the line who knew nothing about what was about to happen simply, innocently began. "Hey man, where you been? We're going to the lake this weekend, and you better not miss it, 'cause buddy, I swear it won't be the same without you there. And I told that girl that you like so much that you were coming along," and her eyes lit up. "I better let you go, man. I hope I really didn't catch you in the middle of anything." And the man says, "Well, you kinda did. But that's okay. I'm glad you called." The names went through my mind. The names of those who might still be on this earth if they had the opportunity to have a call such as that. My son shared this song, and it's entitled "The Call." The very same week I purchased the Mitch Albom novel, "The First Call You Receive from Heaven." The long plot in that book, nutshelled, is simply this: what if there were a momentary opening between heaven and earth that allowed the thoughts of loved ones who had passed on to heaven to become mechanical signals that somehow could travel through the phone? What if those who had passed on could make a momentary phone call, or two, or three, or four? The book is a bit of a cross between science fiction and faith inspiration, and it allows others to listen in, others like myself or whoever reads it, to listen in on others' holy moments. Today we heard read the story of Jesus' baptism, and we were allowed to listen in on one very personal faith experience. And some of us have heard it so often that we forget that what is seen in the story, that dove descending and the heavens opening, what is heard in the story, that voice of God saying, "You are my beloved Son," that those around Jesus didn't hear or see that. They saw the glistening waters dripping off Jesus' dark face and his beard and his hair. They heard the River Jordan working its way downstream, or the afternoon breeze. But Jesus saw the heavens opened, and Jesus heard the voice that would reassure him enough, that would inspire him enough, that would empower him enough to move forward with the mission and the ministry he was called to. One of the people in our congregation had surgery this past Thursday. It was an early morning for he and his wife. The surgery was scheduled for early afternoon. It got postponed to late afternoon. It was a surgery that was planned, but it wasn't planned. The reason the man was having the surgery was because they found a spot, a lump, where it didn't belong. And they found the lump where it didn't belong because in an unrelated place the man had pulled a muscle. And because over the years he's had some problems with aneurysms, with blood clots, they thought, well, better to be safe than sorry. We will check. We will do a scan. He has the scans anyway every couple of years. But the couple of years weren't up. It was over a year before the next scan was scheduled. And someone very attentive found this lump. And the biopsy indicated it was cancerous. Thursday was the day to have it removed to see if the cancer had spread into the nearby lymph nodes around the armpit, to see if taking the cancer out would also mean doing damage to the lymph nodes, to the muscle areas that would weaken the one man's remaining good arm. So Thursday I went to sit with his wife, and we sat in the waiting area. And texts were coming in on the phone. Little messages from friends checking in. Friends letting her know that they were keeping both of them in prayer. Technology can be a beautiful and wonderful thing. Elsewhere in the hospital, we had another member. After an hour or so with the man's wife, I went to visit this other member, sat with her, prayed with her. It's been a busy time in the hospital of late. We have many of our members who have been in the hospital or who are going for chemotherapy on their own and coming out the same day, or radiation coming out the same day. Just before Christmas, I remember one day stopping up at the hospital. I visited one of our members. The very next morning, I went back and I visited in the same room another of our members. I walked back after visiting the woman at one end of the first floor of the hospital back to visit the woman whose husband was having surgery, and she was standing up. The doctor had just been in the waiting room, had just shared with her the wonderful news that the cancer was contained, that it hadn't spread, that it wasn't in the lymph nodes, and yet there were tears. Tears of joy, of gratitude. The definition of a miracle in John's Gospel is a signpost, something that points to something more. What had gone wrong shortly before Thanksgiving with this pulled muscle became this wonderful blessing of spotting something that didn't belong over a year ahead of time and being able to have it removed, even though it was just over an inch in size, to have it removed before it spread. It was a small miracle of sorts, a sign that God is with us. And we need those signs that God is with us, even when the healing doesn't happen the way we'd like it to heal, even when the cancer has spread. Maybe especially then, we need the reminders that God is still working with us, working for us, trying to provide for us miracles of sorts, healings that sometimes are of spirit, and sometimes are of the mind, and sometimes are of the body. Jesus' baptism was actually told, actually written down. There was the fallen Jewish temple, the memory of a crucified Jesus, the deaths of the first Christian martyrs. There were the voices as well that said, remember when Jesus was baptized? He said it was like the heavens were open for him. John the Baptist says it was like the heavens were open. And like a spirit descended upon him and gave him the power to fulfill the ministry he was being called to. And it was beautiful. And it is to be treasured. It is to be something held on to. When Jesus heard, "You are my beloved Son," it was something that we can all know God believes about each of us. That we are God's children, even if we haven't heard the voice, even if we haven't seen the heavens opened. There are signs that are worth talking about, stories worth sharing that can uplift us on the journey. Heaven, though more than a phone call away, is near. For every dear loved one who is there cheering for us, praying blessing for us, waiting for us. Phone calls, with just a phone call, you and I have the power to bless a person each day, or more than one. To remind someone they are loved by God and important to us. That baptism of Jesus isn't something to explain, it's more like a painting to hold and to look at from time to time and ponder and just remember who we are and who He was and how we are loved and how we will be loved into the next life when the heavens are opened and when we see face to face. Until that time, may we remember what Jesus saw and do what Jesus did. Amen.